What do you think about the Ontario College of Psychologists requiring Jordan Peterson
Okay.
to undergo social media retraining?
Yeah. I mean, this has been obviously a topic of great interest on the right wing in both Canada and America recently. I'm not super plugged into it because I'm not terribly invested in Jordan Peterson the way that you are. But I mean, it's not like big government forcing Jordan Peterson to undergo like re-education the way that I think some on the right wing have tried to present it. It's just, I mean, the way that I could sort of interpret it in the most sort of neutral way possible is like, what rights does a professional organization have over its membership?
Right.
To what do, and like this has been a subject of considerable adjudication in both Canada and America, right? It's like for any sort of professional structured organization, career-based, it's a club, a social club, even a church. There was some litigation in Canada recently about, do the Jehovah's Witnesses have to meet some sort of constitutional bar when they disfellowship somebody? When they kick somebody out of the church, like, can they sort of
Sure.
have arbitrary rules? There's been Christian churches in both Canada and America, or not Christian churches. There's been Christian schools in both Canada and America that have tried to, kick out students because they don't conform with, say, very hardline sort of social policies against sex or homosexuality or things like that. So, the question of which, like, when does any sort of professional organization go too far in imposing membership criteria? And I don't know. I don't know if this case necessarily rises to the level where the membership criteria is so unforgiving that Jordan Peterson can really use the language of rights in pleading his case.
Well, my perspective is the role of the Ontario, what is it, College of Psychologists?
Yes, which is not a government organization. This is a professional organization.
Is it not a quasi-government? Aren't they the ones that issue, like, can you not practice in Ontario without their approval? They have government-backed authority, don't they? From a licensing perspective?
Yeah, like the government, but I mean, the government could withdraw that and give it to some other
well, but for now,
organization.
they have government.
But it's like the government,
authority.
but the government doesn't like appoint their members or anything like
Sure,
that. The government
sure.
doesn't dictate their criteria.
Right, so they're an unaccountable government
I suppose you could make
bureaucracy.
that
well,
case.
okay, but this is the argument against, or the argument that it's going too far. It's an act of political speech suppression. Is the Ontario College of Psychologists, I believe from their website, says something to the effect of the purpose of the college is to regulate the quality of the services delivered by our members, which is meaning psychological services.
Yes.
So, in my opinion, it's sort of like, it's like the FDA telling a restaurant, like, hey, the FDA's job as it relates to restaurants.
But it's not analogous to the FDA. This is more like.
Hold on, let me finish the analogy.
Yeah. Okay.
The FDA's job is to regulate the quality of the food to make sure it's not, filled with disease and filled with rat feces and all that, right? It's not the FDA's job to say, okay, well, mom and pop shop or whatever, whoever, you can't say these things. They have a specific role to regulate to ensure that the food delivered is not unhealthy or tainted or whatever. Okay. It seems like obviously it's different. One's food and one's therapy. I need both, but the analogy applies where it's the role of the Ontario College of Psychologists is to ensure the quality of the services delivered.
Yes.
Meaning anytime Jordan Peterson enters a clinical relationship with a client, that's their jurisdiction.
Yes.
Not what he says on Twitter. And I would say if there was, let's just make up an American equivalent, if there was something equivalent or an American one,
I'm sure there is an American one. I'm
sure.
There's like a Texas board
so
of
if there were psychologists or many psychologists who tweeted out, I think Donald Trump acts like a narcissist. I think Donald Trump is an asshole. I think Donald Trump is mentally ill.
Yeah.
I think it would be wrong for some agency or some licensing agency to say to that psychologist, ooh, this doesn't reflect well on us, so you're not allowed to criticize Trump. It's like, no. That's free speech. So long as there is no reason to believe that the quality of the services you are delivering are being impaired, I think it's perfectly reasonable to allow that to say the same.
But who decides that? Who decides that?
Well, I mean, I guess the courts, but what do you mean who decides it?
Well, I mean, like if this is an independent organization that is not bound directly by the Constitution in that sort of way, I mean, it might be bound.
I mean, ultimately it comes to the judgment of individuals. I mean, that's just
No,
like
but
a food inspector. Who decides whether a restaurant meets its criteria? It's the guy inspecting the restaurant.
Yeah, but in that case, you're having a sort of agents of the state who have sort of like a mandate from the people, like they're congressionally authorized to do this and that and that. When you have sort of like a professional organization that has its own sort of standards, however idiosyncratic those standards might be, the question then becomes like, well, at what point does government know better? Like, if you and I make our centrist club and we come up with criteria of who can be a member of the centrist club in good standing, at what point does government kind of come in and say, well, actually, we know more about what makes for a good centrist than you two clowns, so we'll tell you.
I'm not saying that the government should do this or that. I'm arguing about the morality of the situation, just broadly. Just if you to render a judgment on the situation as is, it's like, it seems like that's an overreach. Like, in my opinion, if a left-wing psychologist, which I'm sure is the case, publicly criticizes Donald Trump in a way that's like semi-unprofessional, calling him a narcissist or something, which I bet you there are plenty of people who are licensed psychologists or social workers or something like that who say things like that. And I believe I think it's a rule, not like a law, but like you're not supposed to ever diagnose if you're a you're not supposed to diagnose.
I think they call it the Goldwater rule.
Something like that, right? Which is like, okay, probably not good practice, but again, it is not that agency's job to regulate that person's speech. Their job is to regulate the services.
Yeah, but again,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, but I'm just sort of saying,
can you
like,
at least see where I'm coming from.
I can see where you're coming from, absolutely. But
that's all I ask. That's all I ever ask. Okay.
What I'm just sort of saying is that, like, I know that you like to sort of philosophize about these kinds of things and make them broader and more abstract. So I'm just saying that if we make this broader and more abstract, it's kind of hard
deeper and down to earth, not broader and more abstract, deeper and down to earth.
But I'm saying that, like,
is it too far? Don't get all in the legal mumbo jumbo.
No, I'm not getting into legal mumbo jumbo, but I'm saying, like, even as a matter of sort of general abstract principle, I think it's very difficult to sort of say that government has a better judgment of an independent group's membership criteria than that group itself, right? Like,
sure. Yes. I agree with that. That makes sense.
So it's like, I'm inclined to err on the side of letting groups determine their own membership. And if it sucks, you can always make your own group and maybe lobby the government to recognize you.
Fair enough. I think given that they are a licensing body and have legal authority, I believe that's what a license is. It's commercial legal authority.
Yeah.
It makes it more complicated. But let's move on.
All right.
Okay. This is something we need to discuss.
All right.